Hey guys, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we're going to look at a Leetcode problem, and the problem's name is longer contiguous segments of ones than zeros. So in this question, we're given a binary string S, and our task is to return true if the longest contiguous segments of ones is strictly longer than the longest contiguous segments of zeros inside the input S, else we have to return false. So if you take an example here, you're given the string S, you count the longest contiguous number of ones, it is 2. The longest contiguous numbers of zeros is 1. Since 2 is greater than 1, representing ones, and this is representing zeros. Since 2 is greater than 1, you return true as the output. And here in this case, ones appear 2 times and 0 appear 3 times. The number of zeros are greater, we return false as the output. Now let's take a look at the example and see how we can solve this question. So I've taken the example 3 given to us. Here, as you can see, you can make out that these are the longest contiguous ones. So ones appear 2 times, and this is the longest contiguous sequence of zeros, and 0 appears 3 times. The number of zeros are greater, you get false as the output. So let's see how we are going to do that. So we iterate through the input string S from left to right. We start from the 0th index until the last index, and we keep track of the number of zeros and number of ones. So 0 is a variable which is initially 0, and ones is to count the number of ones which is initially 0. So corresponding to these two variables, you create 2 more variables tracking the max number of zeros and also max number of ones. These are also initially 0. Now let's start with the first element. I is pointing at the 0th index. It is a 1, so increment 1. Until now the max 1 is equal to 1. Go to the next element. I is pointing here. It is a 1, so increment 1. So it is 2 now. Previous max was 1. Now current 1 is 2. So update max variable of 1 2. Go for the next element. It is a 0. If it is a 0, increment the 0 index. And you reset the other variable, which is 1 in this case, to 0. Because this streak is done because it is broken by a 0. So you reset the ones for the upcoming ones. Now you compare the max zeros. Max zeros was 0 initially. It is 1 now. So max of 0, 1, you get 1. Go for the next element. Next element is a 1. So update the count of ones and reset the other variable to 0 because this streak is broken by a new one. And this will remain unchanged because max of earlier it was 2, max 1 will remain 2. Go for the next element. Next element is a 0, so increment the 0 count variable and reset the previous one to 0 because this streak is broken now. And now compare the previous max. Now compare it with the previous max. Previous max was 1 and current max is also 1, so max 0 won't change. Go for the next element. Next element is 0 again. Update the 0 variable and also update the max 0. Max 0 is updated to 2. Go for the next element. It is a 0 again. So you increment the streak of 0 and compare it with the current max 0. Max 0 was 2. It will become 3 now. Go for the next element. Next element is a 1. So increment 1 count and reset the 0's value to 0 because this streak is broken by a 1. Max value won't change. Max 1 won't change because it is 2 and current is 1. So max of 2, 1 will still remain 2. Go for the next element. Next element is a 0. So increment 0 variable and reset the 1 value to 0 because this streak is broken by this 0. Max 0 won't change because max 0 of 3, 1 is 3. And in the next iteration, you reach the end of the string. And now you have the max zeros, which is 3. And you have max ones, which is 2. Since max 0 is greater than max 1, you return false as the output because this is the condition mentioned here. So we are returning false. Now let's implement these steps in a Java program. So coming to the code, you have to return a boolean value true or false as the output, and this is the input given to us. And these are the 4 variables which we declare to keep track. This is to keep track of the number of zeros. This is to keep track of the number of ones. And this is to keep track of the maximum streak of zeros, and this is to keep track of the maximum streak of ones. We're using a for loop to start from 0th index until the last index of the input string S, and extracting one character at a time and storing it inside the character variable ch. If it is a 0, increment the 0 count variable and reset the one count back to 0, and in the else block, if it is a 1, then you increment one count and reset the 0 count to 0 because the streak will be broken. And in each iteration you calculate the max 0 by comparing the current max 0 with the 0 count, and you also calculate the max 1 by comparing the current max 1 with the 1 count. So this will happen for all the elements inside the string, and once you come out, you compare the max 1s with max 0s. If max 1 is greater than max 0, you return true, else you return false. And if you return false, it means that this condition is passing, which I have shown you in the working example. So we return false. So the time complexity of this approach is O of n, where n is the length of the string s, and the space complexity is O of 1 because we are not using any extra space to solve this question. That's it guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.